Translation. Lord Ramachandra took a vow to accept only one wife and have no connection with any other woman. He was a saintly king, and everything in his character was good, untinged by qualities like anger. He taught good behavior for everyone, especially for householders, in terms of varnashram dharma. Thus he taught the general public by his personal activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Eka Patni Vrata, accepting only one wife, was the glorious example set by Lord Ramachandra. One should not accept more than one wife. In those days, of course, people did marry more than one wife. Even Lord Ramachandra's father accepted more wives than one. But Lord Ramachandra, as an ideal king, accepted only one wife, Mother Sita. When Mother Sita was kidnapped by Ravana and the Rakshasas, Lord Ramachandra, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, could have married hundreds and thousands of Sitas. But to teach us how faithful he was to his wife, he fought with Ravana and finally killed him. The Lord punished Ravana and rescued his wife to instruct men to have only one wife. That was quite a huge ordeal to instruct men to only have one wife. Prabhupada's saying there. The Lord punished Ravana and rescued his wife to instruct men to have only one wife. Lord Ramachandra accepted only one wife and manifests sublime character, thus setting an example for householders. A householder should live according to the ideal of Lord Ramachandra, who showed how to be a perfect person. Being a householder or living with a wife and children is never condemned, provided one lives according to the regulative principles of varnashram dharma. Those who live in accordance with these principles, whether as householders, brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, are all equally important. I'll just read the text again. Lord Ramachandra took a vow to accept only one wife and have no connection with any other woman. He was a saintly king, and everything in his character was good, untinged by qualities like anger. He taught good behavior for everyone, especially for householders in terms of varnashram dharma. Thus he taught the general public by his activities. Eka patni vratodaro rajasi charita suchi sadharmam grihamediyan shikshayan swayam acharit. So in this verse, Ramachandra, or Lord Ram, is being glorified for first, primarily, Eka patni vratodaro, that he was held to the vow and in faith to one woman, Eka patni, one wife. Secondly, Rajasi Charita Suchihi. As a king, Rajasi is like a king-like rishi, or a rishi-like king. And his charita, his character was Suchihi. It's clean. He has a clean record. They say that. They check your CV. Look if there's any criminal records there. So, sometimes one sadhu said in Vaishnava life, that better be a beginner than a registered criminal. In the sense that even with Jagai and Madai, it's stated that, they did so many things, isn't it? Volumes. The scribes of Yamaraj had exhausted themselves entirely trying to keep up with Jagai and Madai. And, it was such a surprise to them all. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, isn't it? There's the instance where, maybe Yamaraj himself, correct me if I'm wrong. It's a long time ago I read this. He was traveling on his chariot, and when he heard from his scribes that the entire catalogue of the sinful activities on Jagai and Madai had been forgiven, he fell on the floor of his chariot, unconscious with ecstatic symptoms, by the benevolence of Chaitanya, by the absolute unfathomable benevolence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes we may feel we have a little mercy or compassion in our own hearts. Sometimes we meet others who seem to have perhaps volumes more than we have ourselves. But to be Karuna Sindhu, an endless ocean of compassion, that type of compassion undermines everything in terms of our values of life. That compassion's for everyone and unconditional. Karuna Sindhu, it's Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most merciful manifestation. Namo Mahavadannaya. Most merciful, compassionate manifestation of Godhead. He delivered their sins in a moment, Jagai and Madai. And in that, Yamaraj had collapsed. He couldn't understand that. It was such magnanimity. And so they were clean start. But aside from throwing that pot in anger, and that comes up here as well, isn't it? Anger. Aside from throwing that pot in anger at Nityananda Prabhu, Jagai and Madai had not committed any Vaishnava aparad. The Chaitanya Bhagavat says they, somehow or other, with all their criminality, they never committed any Vaishnava aparad. And in that sense, it wasn't a bar against their progress in spiritual life. But as we know, Yadi Vaishnava aparade, ute hati mata, isn't it? That the offenses to Vaishnavas, they are like no-go areas. We just don't go there. Yadi Vaishnava aparadi utte hati mata. Like a great elephant is coming to the garden, upadeva chindi, and tear from the very root the devotional creeper. From the root. So, as devotees, what we fear is Vaishnava aparad. Aparadha. Because Radha, aparad, it's against devotion. Everything of a devotional nature will move away from us. Upadeva Chindi. Not only that, it's stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Ramchandra Kaviraj blasphemed Nityananda Prabhu, he was, obviously he made countless offenses against Haridas Thakur. Countless offenses. And he went on in his life. And at his home, when Nityananda Prabhu was traveling with his Sankirtan group, they came to the courtyard of his house and he sat in the Durga Mandap, the temple of Durga. And Ramchandra, he wanted rid of them from there. He told his servant, get these people out of here. Get them out of here now. Please, be done with them. And when they left, he took Gangajal, water of the Ganges, to purify the place from the presence of Nityananda Prabhu and his associates. But when he left, it said that the seed of aparad, once it's planted, the tree inevitably grows. Isn't it? There's a saying, to taste another man's poison is to poison yourself. Let me have some of that myself. Why are you keeping it all for yourself? I'll also chew on some of that. In the villages of Ramachandra Khan, everything became destroyed. He was thrown off his land by the rulers, and many villages were destroyed by plague. It is stated that this is Mahantera Apaman Jideshi Grama Hoya Ekajanera Dosha Sabbad Desha Ubajoya. That the Mahant or the devotee. Mahantera apaman desha. If you offend a devotee, not only you destroy yourself, but you'll destroy your own Watford. You'll destroy your whole locality by the offences. So it's taken with such gravity, that there's no question of surviving unless we do continue to commit ourselves to Trinadapi Sunichina. Tarori Vasuhishtina. To such a humble state of being. Very tolerant of, it's okay, don't worry, I'm not offended. It's, whatever, just never developing animosity to devotees. So, as they say, fools rush in where angels fear to tread. That's a motto for us. Especially, I was thinking that when you live at the temple, I remember we were out in Sankirtan all the time. We'd be traveling up the north. I remember staying in Huddersfield and different places, and we just sometimes stay in Hindu temples, and I'm sure you still do all that. Travel around. We used to rent caravans. We used to get like holiday homes. And our small Sankirtan party would stay there, and we just Sankirtan all day. We used to get up in the morning, isn't it? You know the routine. Get up in the morning. If you're the Sankirtan leader, you have to be up first because you've got the biggest ego. No. You have to be up first. Get showered, everybody get ready. Quick breakfast, throw together, khichdi and toast. If you're fortunate. And then out the door. Shri Rama used to say to us, if you're not in the street by 9 o'clock, you've missed the whole market, It's no time to start. Of course, the shops don't open till later now, but we're out there very early. The whole day, busy, till the evening. Take prasad and go back out again. Do the pubs and the clubs and all these things. So, but we would come back to the temple like new bhaktas every time, We just feel so refreshed. And after you've been at the temple for some time, the routine became the 4 o'clock Maha queue and making offences to everyone. Feeling you're making offences in the Dham. Maybe when you're also sometimes, you go to Vrindavan, isn't it? You're there for some time and you think, I have to get going, Because how long can I be like really well behaved? Something has to give a little bit. It can be, after 10 years I was ready for to go sometimes to Mayapur for pilgrimage, for some light-hearted spirit and overeat and everything that you do in Mayapur, dance and overeat. And you digest everything, isn't it? The Ganges water is like magic. It's such a digestive, you just digest it. Your food very quickly, ready for to go again. So, we would always be enthusiastic. We'd be longing to come back to the temple. Longing to come back. And then again, after being at the temple for some time, we'd be aspiring to go again. Because of the complacency that develops. And we used to have a thing that being at Soho Street was okay, because it was like temple room and then absolute Maya everywhere. You couldn't space out. You had to live with such rigidity in your life. Just going up and down those stairs. And then sleeping for a bit, coming down the stairs, going down the stairs for breakfast, going up the stairs to sleep, and in this middle of the daisies. And then the rest of the time it hits central London. You can't be in Maya there. We used to say at the manor you can go for a walk to the Goshala. You can go here, there, just sit around. There's plenty of space to space out, as they say, space out properly. But anyway, this was the thing. We concluded that. I remember Samba Prabhu, who passed away, he was my Sankirtan leader. We would say, at the temple we make so many offenses. We're young devotees. So better we're out on the streets because we're just selling books, And if we commit some offenses now and again, it's not, a mortal sin or something, it's okay. Look at Jagai and Madai. Volumes, everything. Immediately, Suchi. This is Ramchandra. He was clean. He had a good track record, isn't it? It's like now with Modi. You may be following the news on Modi in India. They call it the Modi wave. Such a profound, influential personality. Already in the Forbes top whatever list of people, top, was it? Which magazine was it that put him right to the top? Now they're digging out what they can. They found, Modi was married when he was a very young man. It was one of these, what do you call marriages in India, where it's just kids that get married, And he left it and he went off to be a sadhu. And then lived the rest of his life like that. The young woman he had married all of a sudden started to notice she was surrounded by security. And now the media is like, we've found something on him, man. Look at this. And so, we don't want to be in that situation where we've come for mercy. We've come for grace. We know we have no qualification whatsoever. But as the famous song says, we're just knocking on heaven's door. And we don't want this, a situation where, why were you so ungrateful? Why were you hurt this person so badly with your sharp tongue, or you like that, isn't it? There's some story of Rupa Goswami where he felt that in his bhajan something happened. The taste went. Do you ever find that sometimes? The taste goes. You're really inspired and then you're a bit flat. Yeah? Certainly I know if you're a young devotee here, a bhakta, it's like every second day you feel, one day you're fired up, you're on Harinam, it's like you're the spiritual life. And then you're trying to figure everything else out the next day, like why are you getting up so early? And, it's a whole thing, you can't eat between meals, and you have to chant your japa in the temple room with Pravin. Prabhu. It's still the standard, Somebody was telling the other day that we have to chant in the temple, and I thought, wow, some things, there, isn't it? We used to be allowed to go, in Chaitanya College, the temple room, we used to chant in the temple room, So when you're sitting down, the bhakti, you're falling asleep. And then as a bhakti, you stand up, you're falling asleep. And then you walk around Tulsi. Because these people are starving you of sleep. You're used to much more, perhaps. You're walking around Tulsi Puja, isn't it? Either you're falling asleep, you're worried the person in front of you is going to fall back on you. You see, Prayojan Prabhu's meditative walk. I don't know if he's still doing that. Everyone's behind like. Tiredness. It's laya bikrepa. This is anartha. It's not just physical tiredness. It's isn't it? Anartha, laya bikrepa pratipati. What's the others? Rasabad. Laya means, it's just, when it comes to the activity of bhajan, we just feel so sleepy. It's just tired, Isn't it? When you're doing something, you're just yawning all the time. It's just so boring. So, maybe the tiredness keeps attacking us. And in Vrindavan once I asked a senior sadhu, I said, what really disturbs me is, still I'm falling asleep in my japa. And he said, don't worry, I'm an old man now. I don't get any sleep. Perhaps you can give me some of yours. He's very gracious about that, which I'm sure is Pravin Prabhu's mood also with everyone. And Jagat Priya. So, Laya is the sleepiness. Vikshepa is the distraction. Sometimes maybe a metaphor or an example of that is that I'm sure practically everyone in this room has been a student university. And when your time off is the study week, isn't it? You sit with your laptop, all your books from the library, checking Facebook, checking updates, and you'll eat everything in the house. And it's just so difficult to remain concentrated. Vikshepa. So when the thing hasn't grabbed us, where there's no feeling for it, strong feeling for it, then distractions just, isn't it? And I remember flying on Air France and it said, on-flight distraction. That was what the entertainment was. It was a distraction from the fact that you were flying thousands of feet up in the air in a very, very, anything could happen. So, the vikshepa means it's just the mind's just not settled on the thing. Laya vikshepa. Apratipati means even though I know this is an artist, still I can't manage it. Still I'm not able to focus whatsoever, even though I have become conscious of the fact I'm falling asleep in japa. When you get one of those little touches on the shoulder, and you go, I'm awake. I'm not sleeping. And then again, a little bit, but then you insist on sitting there, right through. It's like Hari Sari Prabhu when he was Prabhupada's servant. He was sitting, chanting, falling asleep, and Prabhupada told him, don't sit down, walk. Get up and walk. So he walked then to chant his japa. This is the flatness, laziness, all these things, anartha. It's just the great drive in devotional service has just gone a bit flat. Rupa Goswami felt that once in his bhajan, and his meditation was broken. He didn't understand what had happened. And then he realized that there was some person with a disability who was passing by. And when Rupa Goswami was meditating in the Leela of Radha and Krishna, there was a humorous pastime between Radha and Krishna. And he began laughing. And the disabled Vaishnava thought it was him. And he just felt some offense in his heart. And because of that, it was unintentional. Unintentional. But even still. So, very important, this Rajasi Charita Suchi. Ramchandra was, in his Charita, he was clean. His standard was good. There was a faultless character. Our aspiration, obviously, in the devotional life is at least not to make offenses to devotees. But anyway, here, Eka Patni Brato Dharo, Rajasi Charita Suchi. With Rajasi Charita Suchi, his behavior was everything. Charita. This is the important thing. There's one verse in the Vayu Purana. Achanoti yashastratam achari stapayatyapi swayam acharati yasmad acharyas tena kirtita. What's an acharya? Tena kirtita. Acharyas tena kirtita means an acharya is famous for what? What fame makes someone an acharya? Achanoti yashastra artam. Well, certainly they have grasped the entire conclusions of the Shastra. Achanoti yashastratam. They've got it. Acharestapayatyapi. And their conduct exemplifies that deep understanding. Means the way they behave, their conduct, their character is completely an example are a result of the deep realization of the Shastra. Achanoti yashastratam acharistapayatyapi. Swayam acharati yasmad. Where the example is there, predominantly. Jai Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda Sri Ram Lakshmana Sri Vanita. Where the example is there predominantly in a person. They know the subject, they know the conclusions, and they live it. Where there's a living example, then that's Acharya. Acharyas tena kirtita. Swayam acharati yasmad acharya tenas kirtita. Prabhupada pushed this point in his preaching. Once he wrote a letter to Mukunda in 1974. Mukunda Maharaj it must have been. And he said that it's very good that you're taking care of the standards at the temple, rather than you spending your time printing brochures. This is PR. Do the good PR for the temple. Now Prabhupada brings a point here to literally the best PR. He said it's very good now you're giving attention to the standards of the temple. Rather than just printing the brochures. Because the brochure is a precept. And if you live the precept, if you're an example of the precept, then that is the best advertising. Prabhupada never budged on this point. That's the best, rather than printing glossy brochures, that you're behaving at the temple. The brochure is a precept. You see, Prabhupada quoted this so many times. Yeah? A good example is better than a precept. Far better than a precept. Example is better than precept. Prabhupada would say a good example is better than precept. So the brochure is a precept. The new film is a precept. Our life here, and our commitment to these things, and our standards, and our behavior, is the example that will be our real, PR machinery. So, and also on another occasion, he said at Tamal Krishna Maharaj in a letter, that he said it's good that you are pushing the book distribution and the street chanting, and from that you're making good devotees. But by teaching through your personal example and giving attention to the deities, that is, never used the word better, but he said that's more convincing. That's more convincing. And then he said again, that example is better than precept. Meaning that we can do all the preaching Krishna consciousness. We can fix our minds on trying to make more devotees. But if we're not living the thing ourselves, if it's not our living experience, if we're not committed to it, if we're not giving due attention to that, the real factor, the joy of devotion in our lives, then Prabhupada said, then it's not so convincing. It's not so convincing. When Prabhupada would write letters to devotees who were getting initiated and stuff like that, or people who were acting in his behalf, he would say, make sure they follow all these things. Meaning all the standards, all the principles, the sadhana. And then he'd say, and make sure you do it yourself. Peculiar, he said that repeatedly. He said, make sure they're following all these things and make sure you do it yourself. This is the principle of Acharya. Otherwise it's just empty words, really, isn't it? It's empty words. Really empty words. So it's also with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he spoke to Haridas, he pushed the same point as well. Achara Oh, what's the verse again? Apane achari keha, na kare achar. There's some people, apane achari keha, their behavior is very good. Their behavior is very good. Na kare prachar. But they don't rise to the microphone. They don't maybe do the prachar, which means speaking Harikatha in whichever level is appropriate. Their words, or that their words are inconsistent. Isn't it? This is the Chanakya. A well-dressed fool is never exposed until he speaks. So, again, he says, just as a goat will eat anything, a fool will say anything. So when somebody may be well-dressed, nice dupatta, everything like that, and then you hear the speech, you say, oh, Krishna, so much aparad. I can't bear the criticism of everyone. It's too much for me to bear. So close my ears. So when the prachar, achara prachar, apani achari kiha na kari prachar. On one side, good behavior, but no prachar. And the other side, that the prachara karina keha, the prachar is going on nicely, but na karina achar, the conduct is not good. Too busy instructing everybody else, too busy giving lectures and monologues to everybody. You've been in those situations, isn't it, when sometimes somebody speaks at you, they're just going on, you think, when are they going to finish, man? It's just, this sentence just doesn't have a comma or a full stop in it. It's already past, Prashad's gone 1 hour ago. It's not really much dialogue there. And then they run off before you can open your mouth. This, the prachar's there, but the achar is, it's not happening. So Mahaprabhu said to Haridas Thakur that achara prachara karaha namara karaha dui karya. With regards to the holy name of Krishna, your prachar, your achar are both pakka, they are very good. Therefore, to me sarva guru, you are my guru. Jagatera Arya, you're saintly in this world, amongst all others. So here with Ramchandra, Rajasi Charita Suchihi, his conduct was immaculate and exemplified in his life. Just, Shikshayan Swayamacharit, by his conduct he taught. Shikshayam Swayamacharit. The example is better than the precept. So here Ramachandra is glorified for that. Interestingly, this word Grihamedi comes in here, isn't it? And when you hear the word Grihamedi, what do you think? Grihamedi. Guru Das Prabhu.
Not following so well couple.
Yeah, a really, really spaced out Grihasta. Medi, sometimes Prabhupada and another, I think it was Hridayananda Maharaj, he said that the Griha Medi is like, the Medi is like the stick in the ground which the bull is tied to, and it's walking round and round like that. It's Griha Medi. Going round and round. Everything is, the whole Medi is in the family life. Now, obviously that's probably progressed from it being everywhere else, and that's the beginning principle of marriage, isn't it? Literally, you hook up. Like that thing on a chain or a rope. You're like, all of a sudden, a young man's perhaps aspirations to enjoy everything are focused now. Somehow they're gravitating around a force that's going to teach him many lessons. So the Prabhupada says, like a buffalo or a bull, the pin is in the ground and the rope's attached, and he's walking around. Also, isn't it, Prabhupada, he would say Grihasta and Grihamedi. There's somebody who is the Griham, Tistati Grihasta. iti grihastha. Someone who's in the home is a grihastha. But Prabhupada would say, grihastha, right, and grihamedi. He would do this separation of the thing, isn't it? And he would use these terms to separate the things. And I think it was related to the verse of Prahlad Maharaj, where he said that what is it? Maitun grihamedi shukham. Like the grihamedi is like committed to their sexuality. Like, he says, Prahlad Maharaj said, like rubbing your hands together to be free of the itch, you know? But the itch is inevitably never ending. And they're continually just rubbing their hands together and it's never satisfied. And the consequence is unhappiness. But somebody who's sober, dhira, comes out of this thing and progresses in their spiritual life. So when in there it mentions the grihamedi sukham, that very materialistic pleasure of household life, then yes, grihamedi. Maybe that's why this clear-cut differentiation came there between grihamedi and grihastha. Also, because grihamedi means somebody who has the rights to perform the ceremonious rituals of household life. All the domestic rights, one has eligibility for all those as a grihamedi. Has eligibility in all those things here. And here Ramachandra is referred to attending to his swadharma so particularly in grihamedi. That doesn't mean he's a materialistic person. So, not in this sense. Prabhupada uses the word otherwise in another sense. But here, grihamedi means somebody who is, you know, they are all fixed up in performing the rites and things of the householder, of the domestic life. So, Ramchandra, he taught by his example. His conduct, swadharma, was perfect according and specifically to do with the grihamediyam, the grihastha life. His character was spotless, and maybe finally ekapatni vrata dharo. He only accepted one wife. Now for us today, we may even think, wow. But you know, in the cases, like his father had several wives. How many wives did his father have, Dasrath Maharaj? 3. He had 3 queens. He had 350 wives. So he had 353 wives. But do you only hear of the 3 queens? Because in Ayodhya Kand, he says, call them our wives to see Ram. And it says that 350 arrived. He's thinking, wow. I mean, still today people are trying for it, you know. There's some chap in Africa who's up to 96. He looks good. One of his most recent wives said, she said, oh, obviously he has so many wives, he knows how to take care of a woman. Now India is not too far behind. There's a chap in India with 36 wives. Hundreds of children. They live in like a big massive hotel. Dinner for them is like a supermarket every day, you know, like a mini supermarket. And what did one of his wives say? Oh, he's the most handsome man in the village, you know. So this Ekapatni Vrata, you know, these are small numbers. These are small numbers. Chitraketu Maharaj, Tasya Bharya Sahasranam Sahasrani Dasabhavam. Chitraketu Maharaj had 10 million wives. 10 million. Krishna had 16,000. But Chitraketu, he went beyond. 16 million wives. And even though he had 60 million wives, he couldn't have one child. Well, he couldn't have one male child, isn't it? Santanikas Chapindripa. He, poor man, he was fully potent himself. But somehow or other, that Nalebi Tasu Santatim, he couldn't have a child. He got some blessing, and then he learned his lesson for marrying so many women. Isn't it? As soon as one child was born, they poisoned the kid. All the envy broke out. Look, Ram's father suffered too much as well. Really, he suffered. His wife, wow. She with mantra in her ear, then she said, okay, send your son to the forest. Chitraketu suffered. The other wives became envious. So here, ekapatni vrato dharo. If it's your destiny, then hang on to one. Because as it's very interesting in the Nabarpur, Prabhupada saying, this whole journey of Ramachandra, from the stealing of Sita, all the anguish, all the pain, all the journey, all the battles and all the wars, were to simply show how a man should be faithful to one wife. Maybe it reflects on how unfaithful men are. That God himself, in his ultimate lesson to them, through hell and high water himself, he taught this thing. Now I know that in ISKCON, Prabhupada in the early days said that a man should maybe have 12 wives. And to Karandar, he said, because so many marriages are breaking up, there's few responsible men, so let the responsible men marry several. But then, shortly after that, he completely banned the whole idea from his society, from top to bottom. Here, writing about it in this purport as well. Absolutely no chance. No way. It's never going to happen in ISKCON. So anyway, in olden times, men, I stayed in a village once in Nepal in a Brahmin's house. He had 2 wives. But he was a high order Brahmin by his status. But that every extra wife they married, they came down a notch. So anyway, if something's to be learned here and for the men, usually the women are very good, in comparison. As it said, if you're faithful to the woman, Yudhishthira Maharaj said, Dharma Patni, how does a man reconcile his madness for enjoyment and his necessity for religion and liberation from material life? And the Yaksha said to Yudhishthira, you marry a good woman. Dharma Patni. Patni means Patyan Vrate Tishtati Patni. Through thick or thin, she's there. With the idiot. Sometimes, I know, believe me. Before I came, I was taking the bins out. I thought, this is Grihastha. I should mention that. Bins out on Thursday morning. So, Grihastha, the Tishtati Patni. What makes her Patni, makes her worshipable, is that she's there through thick and thin with the fellow. Sometimes some women think that the oldest teenager in the family is the husband. Just because men are such, They're cavaliers, they're got all that stuff in them to do great things. So here, or Patni, respecting above everything else. Manusmriti puts this thing on the head of men, that the house in which the women are unhappy, that man, the men of that family are condemned. Condemned. So there's a smiling woman who's arrived. You can see Parashuram gets it all right, Prabhu. But anyway, these are just some things on the lessons taught here in this verse. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki